Great, compelling arguments there. I'm going to say an offensive coordinator in the NFL. Why not?
You're not looking at the ABV anymore? Now the fans are pissed. All the hot dogs are cold.
We're basically just Stephen A. Smith's joke of the league. Like, you could have 3 doctors tell you different things, but all of them are somewhat right to a degree. Have you seen this beer?
I know the company.
Firewalker, no.
Yeah, apparently it's a new seasonal that Odell just came out with.
Full IPA.
It's a double IPA that's 8%. And it's
West Coast double.
Dude, and you'd think that would be insanely bitter and hoppy, right?
Whoa.
What's the percent?
8.
You're not looking at the ABV anymore?
No, dude, I am. But this is what a customer tipped me this. This was free. The customer gave this to me as a tip.
Well, good for you.
And I'm not going to go get it right now because that'll make a lot of noise. But the day before, he gave me 4 cases of it.
Oh my gosh.
He gave me 4 cases.
I mean,
They're all
I've got a 6-pack, but 4
well, that's
cases.
what I mean. They're all 6-packs, like 4 6-pack cases. But still, like, that's a full
4
rack.
beers, guy.
Yeah, those are expensive too.
Yeah. He apparently bought the last that the liquor store had because, again, this is a seasonal, and they don't make that many of them at Odell. But anyway, the day before I got this tip, I had another customer tip me a bottle of whiskey, and dude, he brought it. I don't know.
All alcohol.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but
have you cracked that open yet?
I have. It's very delicious, but I had no idea what kind of whiskey it was because it's like Sky Run Blue or something like that. It looked nice. I was like, oh, cool. He left, so I Googled it to look it up. Dude, it's $100 bottle of whiskey. Like,
is it local?
I have no idea. I don't know where.
Maybe
No, it's Kentucky. The whiskey was from Kentucky, so it's not like a local guy. But he said that he runs a business, like he's the CEO of something, and every like holiday season or whatever, he always buys all of his employees a bottle of like nice whiskey. I was like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. Like, it'll probably be like Makers or something, like $40. No, like, I'd look it up and it's $100. It's like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah, he knows what he likes.
I'm not gonna say no to it. I still
What was
got
the
most
name?
of it.
What was the
I
name
think
of
it's
it again?
Sky Run Blue or something like that. Let me look it up. Hang on.
Sky Run Blue.
Yeah, let me see.
Skyrim?
Skyrim.
Elden Ring?
Sky Run Blue whiskey. Blue Run. That's what it's called. It's called Blue Run. It's got a butterfly on the front of it. Yeah, Blue Run Kentucky bourbon.
Blue Run.
And it's like 47%. So it's strong as hell. But anyway. So yeah, it's nice when I get a customer tip occasionally. But back to this. I got a whole.
He needs a drink.
Yeah, dude, it was a pain, dude. His whole shit was fucked. That's why it just took forever, and I did a lot for the guy. He was like, I think we should pop a bottle. And I was like, I'm down. Do you have any whiskey? And he was like, I actually do. I'll be right back. It's like, I was kidding, but okay. I'm at work. I cannot drink this right now.
Did he actually bring it in? Like, he was trying to pour you glass in the store?
No, he wasn't trying to pour it. He just brought in the bottle and he's like, here, that's for you. Take it home. And I was like, oh, you're awesome. I was 100% kidding, but thank you.
That's funny. Man for the people.
Yes, sir. And then I got a whole fridge full of 8% Firewalker double IPAs now, too.
Chuck's about to start speaking Mandarin.
You never know. You know how long we go.
In Durango, Chuck would be like, oh, that beer's 5.6. I don't know.
I don't go above 7 typically.
Like an average beer, isn't it?
It is. I typically try not to go above 7 anymore. But, if someone's given me 4 free cases, what am I supposed to do? Tell them to take it back?
Take a hike. Take a hike, Jimmy.
Just slap a label on it that says 4%.
Get that beer out of my personal space.
You get that 8% out of my personal space.
All right. Jesus. Well, shall we get in to the story of the week? We're going over Steve Sarkisian today and basically what happened on his whole heart issue while he was at Alabama. Basically, hang on 1 second. Fuck. I'm already fucking this up. But no, basically, what they discovered in a routine physical checkup was that he had a congenital heart defect that he had no idea about. And if left unattended, could have gone cat. Ugh, I'm already drunk.
I was like, is he lagging or is he okay?
Catastrophic.
Exactly. Could have ended in catastrophe. All right. Well, just to give you a little bit of background on Mr. Steve Sarkisian, he was born in Torrance, California, and was born into a family of 7 children, which in which he was the youngest. So he was the baby of the whole family. And basically, growing up around football.
Baby Sark. Sorry. It just,
that's okay. No, that's perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. But anyway, for those of you who don't know, obviously he is currently the current head coach of the Texas Longhorns. And yeah, so to kind of give you that background, basically his first memory of football as a child, he was watching Walter Payton leaping over a pile of defenders into the end zone. And it was really from that moment on where his love of football kind of started to grow, and he knew that he wanted to do something as far as sports go. He did grow into kind of a better baseball player growing up initially, but he never lost that love of football. And basically, he would always continuously pretend to be like Walter Payton himself, and he would always like make up scenarios where he could run through the defense and execute plays and things like that. Typical things we all did growing up as kids. I don't know about you guys, but me and my dad's thing, whenever we watched Longhorn games, whenever we were growing up, anytime the Longhorns scored, I would run to the other side of the living room, jump to the couch, and he would throw me like a mini football for like a little touchdown catch. I don't know if you guys did anything like that, but that's what we did.
We used to like dress out in full football equipment for some of those games.
Dude, yeah.
I had one of those kids' helmets, and then every time they would score, I remember we would always run out the door and be like, "Let's go Longhorn!"
Yeah, we used to
scream out the neighborhood.
Yeah, I used to have a Marcus Tubbs game worn football helmet.
I don't even know who Marcus Tubbs is.
He was a defensive tackle for the Longhorns in like 2001.
Oh, okay.
2002, and then he played for the Seahawks, I believe. Yeah, it was a Christmas gift. I used to wear that when they'd play every now and then.
That's pretty sick. That's a cool Christmas gift.
So I would have the little kid's football helmet, and he would have the actual football helmet, and we would just hit each other with the.
He broke the helmet again.
You're like, why is Ryan getting so many concussions and Tyler's just fine? I don't understand what's going on.
We actually did that in the front yard. We suited out.
I bet you did.
Jerseys to football pants, shoulder pads, helmets. Just run right over each other. Break his plastic helmet. It was good times.
Yeah, the football pants didn't even have pads in them.
Yeah.
Just football pants.
He got football pants on tight. No padding whatsoever. No protection. That's funny.
Ryan had the knee pads on his shins.
That's funny. But yeah, that's my point. I feel like everybody who like became an athlete, at least through high school or something, always had those little things you did for the teams you watched whenever you were a kid. So it was cool to see what Steve, like Mr. Sarkisian's was during that time too. And his idol was Walter Payton. So
Walter.
Yeah, some guy I never saw play, obviously, but you see highlights of him, and he was a pretty damn good running back. But anyway, so still at that point in his childhood, with all of his siblings, the closest in age to him was 5 years old at the time. So basically growing up, he was kind of put in a place where he had to create like some fun on his own as well, even like during those football sporting events or anything like that. So he would constantly play games and make up scenarios in his head, whether it was like soccer, baseball, or football, which I personally think from reading about it really helped his creativity with like coming up with plays and stuff in the future, and like really helped him embrace that creative side as a football like offensive coordinator to start, and then as a head coach now. So I thought that was a cool little insight. But now, fast forward to high school, he's excelling not only at football but baseball as well. So much so that he even became a non-scholarship shortstop for the USC Trojans in 1992. He eventually lost the starting role to a guy named Gabe Alvarez, who was like a second round draft pick. At that point, he decided to transfer to El Camino Junior College, which was near his hometown back in Torrance, California. And this is where he actually met his head coach, John Featherstone, who convinced him to give football another shot. And this is the guy that he basically credits as being his first football mentor or life mentor in general. But this is
that at El Camino?
Yeah, at El Camino, his junior college. His head coach was John Featherstone. That's the guy. Apparently,
he played football at El Camino too, football and baseball.
I think. Let me see. No, so he transferred to El Camino to play baseball initially, and then the head coach John Featherstone convinced him to try football again, give football another shot. So this was the guy that kind of got him back into football when he was focused on baseball. Because he, like I said, he was got to play at USC, which is nothing to scoff at. But when he lost that starting role, that's when he decided to transfer. But yeah, anyway, once he got to El Camino 2, he soon fell in love with the culture of the team around him. I feel like JUCO is kind of like what we experience in D3 baseball as well, where there's a lot of camaraderie. There's not like, superstars or anything like that trying to hog the spotlight, go first round, thinking they're better than everybody. It's like a real team.
They're all just trying to play ball.
Exactly. And, it's fun to mess around a little bit too. Like, it's not all serious and all business all the time. Like, I feel like you get to have a little bit more fun in JUCO and the lower divisions as well, even though some guys do get drafted, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you got JUCO is just a wild card of people, essentially. You got the guys that are trying to get drafted also, and you got the guys that are just there just because that was their only option they had.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just never know what you're going to get.
Exactly. So he really talked about how he loved the culture of that team and about the group just really embracing the diversity of everybody around him. And the football team really made him feel like he was a part of a family when he got to El Camino. So again, that kind of fueled that fire for him to continue to pursue football. And then from there on, he had a couple standout seasons. He actually ended up being able to transfer to BYU. And this time and that's where he met his second mentor, which was an offensive innovator, in his words, Lavelle Edwards.
Was that his actual position? Offensive innovator?
I don't know. That's what I wrote.
In which we got to throw a little shout out to the coaches that were not trying to keep athletes one-dimensional to, like, they saw the strengths and they're like, let's make it work.
Well, exactly.
In there.
Exactly. Like you're talking about John Featherstone.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. You saw him, in that baseball role, and he's like, yeah, you might want to try football. There's different things like that. I hated coaches in football specifically that were like, you have to play football, forget about baseball, especially in high school. I don't know if you had coaches like that, but
we had a lot of them.
Dude, they pissed me off. Drove me nuts. They're like, you have to be a two-sport athlete if you want to make it to the next level. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I remember specifically, we had playoff baseball in Hobbs, New Mexico for Texas, which is crazy, I still think. But through that process, I missed a lot of football practice in the spring. Of course, because we're in like the third round of playoffs. So, we're practicing 2 hours, sometimes an hour and a half after school. Not really able to make football practice. And then we have our spring game. I literally get off the bus from El Paso and then go play in our spring game. Had a great spring game, had fun with it. And then my football coaches were saying, since you missed a lot of our spring practice, we're going to try and limit your snaps because you weren't as committed. And it's, dude, I'm 17.
And if
Playoff
anything,
baseball.
yeah, if anything, I'm even more committed because I'm literally participating in 2 sports for the school. So like, what are you even talking about?
And didn't skip a beat, knew all the plays, was ready to roll, you know, and they held that against me. And it's just like, come on, dude, I'm just a kid. I'm still showing up.
Yeah, dude, exactly. It's not like you're skipping to go smoke weed behind the bleachers or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, who's on the field?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You were smoking weed on the field?
Yeah. No.
No wonder they were upset with you.
He's mid route.
Oh,
yeah.
He flicked it on other players and everything.
It's like longest yard.
It's like, hold my roach, bitch.
No, not quite. Not quite. Not at all,
That took a
actually.
U-turn.
What?
That took a U-turn.
Yeah. All right.
No
Sorry.
kidding. No, but we had a lot of guys like that. It's like, maybe you should just focus on baseball, or maybe you should just focus on football. And it's like, well, I'm here. I'm suited out. Why can't I play both? You know?
Exactly. And I mean, again, like, I feel like coaches want you to be a multi-sport athlete, but they're upset whenever it interferes with their specific sport. And I'm like, I don't know what you want from me. Again, and like you said, I'm 17. I don't know what's going on.
And like some instances, that wasn't the case for some guys. And then that was the case for some guys. And it's like, where do you draw the line, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, shout out to the coaches that encourage that, embrace high school and developing and learning new things and jumping, running, catching,
All the things.
throwing.
Exactly. So that brings me actually to my next point. So back to offensive innovator Lavelle Edwards. Again, I didn't get the chance to Google yet. Ryan, if you want to look up if he was the offensive coordinator or the head coach.
Yeah.
Real quick for me, if you don't mind.
Lavelle Innovator Edwards.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was his middle name too.
They just called him Vader.
Wow, the stadium's named after him. 97 career victories. He ranks as one of the most successful college coaches of all time.
Well, that makes sense why he's Sarkisian's who he considers his second mentor after John Featherstone. So, I mean, I get it now. So he was a head coach, I'm assuming, not offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So that's why I wrote innovator, because that's what he was labeled as. For his offensive scheme, I'm assuming he was
strong point.
Creative.
He was a head coach from 1972 to 2000.
Holy.
It's a long stretch.
Yeah, that's a good career, I'd say.
They made him get out.
If we name the stadium after you, will you retire? Please.
No, I don't know if you can coach anymore, man.
It's actually his gravestone. He's still there.
Buried behind the field.
They put him right under the 50-yard line.
They got the dates right under where it says Lavelle Edwards Stadium.
Oh, my God. Well, anyway, back to Steve Sarkisian. So, again, met with that second mentor. He was really enjoying his time under him, learning all that he could as a quarterback of the team. Excuse me.
One of these times he's going to throw.
Rolling.
Only 8% guy.
I know. I've only had 2 of them. Anyway. So, during his time at BYU, let's fast forward a little bit to August 24th, 1996. This day marked a pretty big day in the football career of Steve Sarkisian, as he picked apart the Texas A&M defense in a way most quarterbacks are told not to do. In one particular instance, he actually made a throw rolling left and threw across his body, which is usually a recipe for disaster. You guys know what I mean.
Big no-no.
Yeah, exactly.
Until you do it well.
Yeah, exactly. You're literally just begging for an interception or something like that. But it worked out for him and ended up being like the highlight of that day and of that game. So, in his mind, and according to Lavelle Edwards too, which is what he encouraged Sark to do, he broke the rules. And now that's what he encourages his players to do now as a head coach. If you can make the play, he wants you to be an athlete, make the play. Obviously, don't do something insanely dumb, but if you are that kind of guy and you're that athlete, make the play that you can make. You know,
Take what you can get.
it's like letting Patrick Mahomes go crazy instead of telling Patrick Mahomes to sit in the pocket, right? Like you want him to do his thing.
And like Jared Goff throwing 5 picks.
Yeah. Not to compare.
But he comes back and wins. He's gonna, I don't know, be himself.
Yeah.
Hey, it works.
They still won.
It does. But, again, not to compare Steve Sarkisian, quarterback at BYU, to Patrick Mahomes. But
he was laying the pathway.
Yeah. On that day, he ended up beating the Aggies. But that helped inspired him to change the game into more of an air raid attack versus the traditional ground and pound way of that time whenever he was coming up and playing. So now you can see it in Sark's play calling, especially now at Texas. He mixes up with everything. Like, yes, obviously the run game is huge. He's not just all about the air attack or anything like that, but he likes to mix it up and let everything loose. And do you guys remember that one play against Florida that's all over Instagram right now?
Oh yeah, it's like
he faked handed it off like 4 times. Yeah, Jesus, and gave it to Isaiah Bond.
Yeah,
so
beauty.
It worked to perfection. I mean, but that's the kind of thing that I think that he likes to come up with.
We'll see what he comes up with against Arkansas.
We should have no problem with Arkansas. If there's a problem with Arkansas, we're gonna have a problem with A&M. That's the one I'm kind of nervous about. Although
better than Arkansas.
What?
Isn't A&M better than Arkansas?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was worried about the A&M game, not Arkansas.
College football, baby. Yeah, be ready.
Because it's at Kyle Field. But I mean, who did the Aggies just lose to? Was it South Carolina? It was.
Oh, they got stomped. Dude.
They got waxed. That's true.
South Carolina could.
They're looking solid.
They don't look too bad. I'll give them that. So to go back to Steve Sarkisian to finish up his college career after he beat the Aggies that year, he ended up winning the Sammy Baugh Award. And he led his BYU Cougars to actually a 14-1 season, leaving them as the number 5 team atop the AP poll, which was only a glimpse of the offensive prowess that was yet to come from the mind of Steve Sarkisian. So I'm going to ask you guys here, what is the Sammy Baugh Award? Who is that award given to every single year?
Top collegiate quarterback.
Close. Not quite.
That's what I just read.
The nicest person award.
This is nation's top collegiate quarterback by the Touchdown Club of Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, well, technically, I guess it would be quarterback, but it's
college passer.
Yeah, college passer.
So it could be a center because he's passing every time.
You never know, dude. What if you're running constant end arounds and your running back actually has a cannon and he throws for like 100 yards a game? You don't know.
His ratings through the roof.
Yeah, dude.
He's just 3 passes a game.
You got Lamar Jackson out wide in the as a slot receiver running end around. You never know.
Yeah, running backs just throwing darts.
Yeah,
touchdowns only.
Fake kick, fake punt.
You were right, Ryan. It could have been the punter.
Yeah.
Could have been the punter.
That holder,
That holder. Yeah.
The
guy who threw that one
do
ball
not have the fake punt down by any means.
They don't have anything down. I'm so over the Cowboys. They pissed me off.
Yeah, we won't get into that.
No, we will later though. But anyway, so after that, he actually went on into the CFL to try and continue to pursue like a professional football career. In the CFL, from what I read, it was actually pretty underwhelming from what he did with the Rough Riders, which led him in 2000 to actually begin working at an internet startup back in El Camino, where his junior college was located.
Man of many talents.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at me. I'm working at, Verizon. That's we sell internet, same kind of deal. Who knows? I might be the head coach after Sarkisian.
BYU, the CEO of GoDaddy.com.
Yeah, there you go.
Chuck Hughes Field.
That'd be wild. But anyway, once he got back to El Camino, Featherstone, his former coach and his first mentor, allowed him to actually start coaching quarterbacks on a volunteer basis, where he was actually encouraged to continue to pursue the coaching route. From there, he was actually introduced to Pete Carroll, head coach of USC at the time, by the offensive coordinator at BYU, Norm Chow. So he kept in contact with his BYU guys, and that's through that contact that got him to meet the man, the myth, the legend, Pete Carroll himself.
PC. Yeah, that's
there
funny.
You go.
Internet, PC.
I'm sure there's got to be a connection already with USC, though.
Full circle.
As far as, what do you mean?
Like he's playing baseball there.
Short, or right when the shortstop.
Yes, that is true. So I'm sure there was somebody else there at USC that probably knew him from his time as a baseball player, but I don't think he ever had any direct contact with Pete Carroll himself. Because I don't know if Pete Carroll was there at the time when he was there playing. I don't think he was. I'm not sure. But from what I read, he was introduced by Norm Chow, the offensive coordinator of BYU. So that's kind of how he got in contact there. From there on, though, this brings us to our third mentor for Steve Sarkisian. He would name Pete Carroll his third mentor that helped him in the game of football. And this is where his career really took off. And he credits Pete Carroll with a lot of different things, and basically his whole career based on where he's at. If it wasn't for Pete Carroll and allowing him to come on there, he wouldn't be where he is today. Actually, he might be dead because of the medical reason we're going to get to here in a second.
He could be dead. Very good chance.
True. So I'm going to take a pause here now that we've gone through his high school career, his college career, and his pro career. He's going to see what level would you guys, if you were like a head football coach or offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, any kind of coach, what level would you guys prefer to coach at?
Probably college.
Why is that?
Just the energy from college sports. It's just different, the hype, the game day, the build up, the playoffs now, if it's baseball, the World Series, there's a lot of different directions you can go from having success at college too. And I don't know, I feel like you have a lot of fun with that group.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, your contract says you have to be the starter or who knows,
No, I completely agree. That's the level I would pick as well. Like you said, I think it's the most fun. Got a lot of guys that are just trying to make it or at least have a good time while they're playing that don't think they're ever going to go pro. Like, it's not all about money. I feel like pro, it's very serious. It's business. That's all it is at that level. Like,
you can really change lives at that level too. Like, you get guys going in the right direction, be a good mentor to them, maybe be that leader that they needed and never had, especially early on.
Exactly. Ryan, what do you think?
Well, after your great, compelling arguments there, I'm going to say an offensive coordinator in the NFL. Why not?
All right, well, break that down for me. Why?
Play around with superstars. It's like chess. Be really strategic in planning. And then if you have really good players, you don't have to do much.
Okay, well, I like that side of it too. I see what you're saying, that you kind of get the best of the best, and you get to kind of play around with that and be creative with the best. I like that idea too.
But you could have the Raiders and,
or the Panthers.
Or the Panthers.
Or the boys.
No matter what play you call, it's going to be a disaster.
It's just not going to work. It's not.
And then the media is like, why are you so bad? You need to get fired. We need somebody new immediately. And it's like week 2.
Jesus. Exactly. Yeah, see, that's the other thing about being a professional coach of some kind. Like the media scrutiny, I feel is even worse. And like you could be fired, I don't know, just so much quicker than I feel like in college. In college, I feel like if you sign a contract, most of the time they stick with you until the end of that contract, unless you're Dabo Sweeney.
I think it'd be cool.
Or was it Dabo? No. Who went to A&M?
Jimbo,
Jimbo. Unless you're Jimbo,
fish sauce.
they're still paying that man what, $10 million a year?
Wouldn't it be cool if they did like trades with coaches?
Dude, I like
to Western Kentucky would be.
It'd be just like in what is it, Tropic Thunder? Be like yeah, we got Jimbo Fisher for the washing machine. Tough decision to make, but I had to pull the trigger.
Practice gear was getting a little too smelly.
Yeah, exactly. But dude, Saban to Western Kentucky, that'd be wild. See if we could turn this program around, boys.
We got that's not Tropic Thunder.
Not Tropic Thunder, sorry. Semi-pro, sorry. I was thinking of the Flint Tropic. My bad.
Like, what scene?
I meant semi-pro with the Flint Tropics. That's what I meant.
We got him for our new hot dog roller. Thought it was a good investment at the time. Now the fans are pissed. All the hot dogs are cold.
Oh, Jesus. All right. Well, let's get back to Steve Sarkisian's coaching career. So, during his time at USC, he worked and coached Heisman Trophy winners Carson Palmer and Matt Leinart to the point where he actually impressed the Raiders owner Al Davis so much that he offered him the head coaching job at the age of 32. Did y'all know that?
Pretty young.
No, I did not know.
I knew he went pro and then went back.
Well, here's the funny thing. This isn't the time that he went pro. He turned down that offer. He didn't go to the Raiders. He told Al Davis, of all people, no, which I thought was insane when I read that.
Yeah, I mean, he probably felt a little bit of imposter syndrome there at 32.
Probably, but he was also, I don't, what were the Raiders doing in the 90s? Were they good? I don't even remember.
Jerry Rice through that time, Rich Gantt, they weren't bad.
That might have been a hell of a team to coach.
When was Bo? Time with Bo Jackson.
I feel like he was earlier than that, wasn't he?
They had another Hall of Famer, Eric Dickerson, right?
This was past 2000 though, right?
Or is that Rams?
Yeah, this is over 2000. Oh, you're right. Yeah, no, it's past 2000 at this point. Sorry. He ended his football career. No, this is probably like, let me see, what was it? Probably around 2003, 2004. Because that's when Matt Leinart was there.
Marcus Allen, what years did he play?
Yeah, Bo Jackson played late 80s, early 90s. So Bo Jackson was gone at that point.
Oh, Marcus Allen played in the 80s.
It's a little different time frame.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of Raiders players that were good.
That's the only ones I could think of too. But anyway.
He said the job was never actually offered to him.
He said that? Because what I read, it said that Al Davis
said they were really interested, and he told them he wasn't wanting to make that decision. He said he wanted to stay at USC.
Okay. Well, that brings me to my next thing. He decided to stay on as offensive coordinator at USC. So, after that season, he actually took up his first head coaching position at the University of Washington shortly after that. While it was short-lived, he actually learned a lot about what it takes to be a head coach of a legitimate Division I football program. So basically, the year after he told the Raiders no, stayed on for another year at USC, that's when he went to Washington. And a lot of people actually thought that he would leap at the opportunity to jump back in the saddle at USC since the departure of Pete Carroll. That's whenever he went into the NFL. And eventually...
Whoa.
What?
So 2004, he was actually a quarterbacks coach for the Raiders. And then he went back to USC.
I didn't see that part. Okay. Well, thank you for correcting me on that.
Thank you, ESPN.
I'll take it. Did I get the part right about him going to Washington, though, shortly after that year?
It doesn't say anything about Washington,
Okay.
but
Well,
I think you are correct.
okay. He eventually did accept the job back at USC in 2013, from what I saw.
Yes. So he was at Washington from 2009 to 13.
So he was there for a few years, not just 1 year. So then, basically from there on, after he accepted the USC job again, he actually would face an opponent that he had not yet seen before. The political landscape that is the NCAA. And if you remember at this time, this is when USC was starting to face all of those allegations of cheating and scandal and the Reggie Bush stuff and all of that good stuff. So basically, right when Sark kind of got into that role, it was a time of turmoil and just nothing but constant press and media issues for the USC Trojans. He did the best he could. And basically, they were just trying to illegitimize a bunch of USC wins at that time when he was actually an offensive coordinator there, too. So it was kind of an attack not only on the school, but him as well, because he was a part of the staff during some of those times. And then during this time now in 2014, that's when it was revealed that he had a problem with drinking. And I'm sure facing that kind of scrutiny probably drove him to that, which is, kind of understandable, but still not the best look. And the media, obviously, once they got a hold of that, you know how they like to run with those kind of stories.
Oh, heavily scrutinized for sure.
Yeah. But once all that came out and Sark was still kind of like in the depths and throes of drinking heavily, he actually had a moment where he saw Yankees star pitcher at the time, CC Sabathia. I'm sure we all remember who that is. State on like a press conference at some point that he was going to check into a rehab program himself for his own drinking. And in Sark's mind, that set off a light bulb in his head that basically said that he needed to do the same for himself. Sark went to rehab, got his act together, kind of quit drinking, and then not more than a year later, that's when Coach Nick Saban gave Sark a call and actually offered him a spot on the team as an offensive analyst, not the coordinator, just an analyst.
He was like the only coach that reached out to him.
Yeah, he was nobody else wanted to touch Sark at this time because of all the problems that he's had and the scrutiny that USC was facing and his drinking and just basically everything that he was going through. Saban, for whatever reason, liked the mind of Sark as a football coach, and that's all he cared about. Offered him the job as the analyst. And that was basically the start of his stint at Alabama. And that decision right there and that phone call from Saban was ultimately what would save his life.
Gave him a chance.
We actually get to his fourth mentor and his final mentor in his life so far, which is Nick Saban himself. Maybe not final.
Only four.
Well, it is his fourth mentor. That's what they stated there, at least from what I was reading. But anyway, not final. You're correct on that. Who knows who he'll meet from here on out. But anyway, he eventually went on to be named offensive coordinator at Alabama shortly before the national title game. And then shortly after that, he actually went back to the NFL for a short time period of about 2 years with the Falcons, which again was an underwhelming couple of years in the NFL before he found himself back with the Crimson Tide. Anyway,
rising tide.
Now we get to the point in the story where the whole medical issue and the whole reason we're doing this kind of comes into play. So every year at Alabama, Nick Saban actually requires his whole staff to go through an executive physical. And this is where whenever Sark decided to went through that, he actually received some alarming yet life-saving news in the end. So just to back it up a little bit, Nick Saban started this. He was in a press conference. I saw an interview with him when he said this. He stated he started doing this for all of his staff because of his dad passing in his 40s. He felt that it was necessary to always check up on yourself and make sure that you're in good shape, which is why he implemented this mandatory physical into the program. And for Sark's sake, thank goodness he did. Whenever he went through the physical, it revealed that he actually had a near ruptured aneurysm, basically kind of a swollen aorta in his heart, which was the result of a leaky valve. from everything that I've read about it, it's kind of a congenital defect where he had a bicuspid valve, which basically just means like a 2-flap valve instead of a tricuspid valve, which is a 3-flap valve, which is the standard and normal, which caused basically like regurgitation, potentially leading to heart failure, which caused backup into the aorta, which started to cause the swollenness and then eventually the aneurysm over time. Sark had no idea. Only thing that saved his life is this physical, because if an aneurysm or anything like that actually ruptures, it's basically like cutting your jugular. Like you bleed out in a very short amount of time, and there's like almost nothing they can do if that actually ruptures. So it really did save his life. Now, here's the confusing part. You and me, Tyler, I don't know if you saw it too, Ryan, but saw the interview with Sark where he said the healthcare staff called it a widowmaker. From my understanding, a widowmaker, or what they term that in healthcare, is basically like a clot in the LAD, left anterior descending coronary artery, which causes a heart attack. So not necessarily an aneurysm in the aorta caused by a leaky valve, which is what he had to have surgery for. So it was kind of mixed communication there as far as like what exactly it was. But then when I looked up the definition of widowmaker, something else popped up. Let me see. Oh, then this thing that said, just basically on Google, said just an aneurysm in the heart is considered a widowmaker too. So I was like, so it depends on what, I guess there's a couple different things that they can call that.
But what defect kind of makes it unique?
Yeah,
To him, at
exactly.
least.
Exactly. But regardless, that's the information of what I found, they found in his physical and what they needed to correct soon. Because again, if that aneurysm ruptures, you're pretty much done. You're pretty much going to die and bleed out. 4 days after that diagnosis, he actually had life-saving open heart surgery, which to this day he actually credits to Nick Saban. He's always talks about how if it wasn't for him, he wouldn't be here today. And basically the procedure that he went through, they cracked his sternum open, did the whole rib cage thing that I'm sure most people in the medical field are familiar with as far as open heart surgery goes, and replaced that valve with a prosthetic pig valve in order to kind of fix that defect and hopefully clear up the issues there.
The white pig.
I don't know. That's a good question. I think because my only guess is that a pig's heart is most similar in anatomy to ours. Am I right?
Yeah, pigs kind of mimic very similar details to human anatomy, which is interesting. We don't look very similar, but they figured it out somehow.
Act similar.
Oink, oink. Well, I'm glad you asked that because I actually wasn't sure, but that was my guess. Because that's what makes the most sense.
Like most closely mimics the human valve.
Well, that makes sense then. All right. So once he got that, the other weird thing was normally in these kind of situations, they do what's called a TAVR. Have you heard of a TAVR before, Tyler?
No.
So a TAVR, let me find what exactly the breakdown means. I wrote it down. It's a transcatheter aortic valve replacement. That's usually how they do these things. Can either of you, so just to break that down for you, what a TAVR is exactly, instead of doing open heart surgery, like where they crack the chest open from the sternum and do all that good stuff and actually get into the heart, they go in through your femoral artery in the groin. So they go in through the groin, basically work a wire all the way up and do what they got to do inside the aorta once they get to the heart from there. Why do you think they decided to do open heart surgery versus the TAVR method?
This is definitely not my specialty.
I got this from Chansey. So it's not necessarily mine either, but her being a cardiac nurse helps.
Never would have thought they would do surgery going through your groin. So I don't know exactly the difference you get from that. Like, is there something with location, maybe?
So the main reason to do a TAVR versus open heart surgery is it's way less traumatic as far as that goes, right? Because like you're going in, you basically just make an incision on the groin, go through the
Less
artery.
invasive for sure.
Yeah, that's what that's the correct verbiage. So that's why they do it that way versus just destroying your rib cage, and it just takes a lot less time to heal when you do it that way. But there is a specific reason why they did it the way they did it. Um, Tyler, do you have any ideas?
I'm not entirely sure on the specifics for this one.
So, from what Chansey told me, she basically said the reason they didn't do the TAVR method is because that actually increases the risk. Since the aneurysm was already so bad, that increases the risk of rupture whenever you go through the aorta.
That would make sense for sure.
So, cracking open the rib cage allows them to see everything without messing with it, internally and possibly rupturing it and effectively killing the patient. So, I was like, well, that makes sense.
Effectively killing.
If you have a ruptured aneurysm in your aorta, dude, there's not a lot you can do.
You will die effectively.
Exactly. Anyway, to wrap up the story with Sark here too, once he was out, he basically had to relearn how to like walk and do like basic movement and stuff like that. Cause as you can imagine, open heart surgery is no joke. And he got to the point where at one point he went on a walk and he had this small hill in front of him and he was drenched in sweat. And he was just trying to like just work his way through this. And he said to himself, he's like, if you can't get up this hill, you can't coach anymore. So he powered his way through it, got back home, drenched in sweat, scared the hell out of his wife because she thought he was dying again all of a sudden. But from that point on, he continued to progress very rapidly. He kind of had that mindset where he was going to work to get back to what he wanted to do no matter what. 3 weeks after surgery, he was back coaching and he helped the Crimson Tide to their 18th national title. And then shortly after that season, he went on to the head coaching position at the University of Texas, which was it his first or second year he made the playoff? Was it a second?
Second.
What was last year?
I think they had a losing season the first year with them, right?
I don't remember.
Or it was close to one, at least.
Yeah. Well, regardless, this past year went on to lead him to the playoff for their first time. And now he's coached them so far to is it 9-1 or is it 8-1 right now? I think it's 8-1. No.
8-1 overall.
8-1 season so far here in 2024. And he's got the Longhorns ranked at number 5.
5 in 2022.
That's not terrible for a first year as a head coach.
First year, not your roster, not your team. Just kind of getting, still your team, but you're just taking what you got at that point.
Exactly. So pretty incredible stuff as far as his head coaching career goes so far. I'm excited to see what he does the rest of the season here at Texas. I hope he sticks around for a long time.
I like what he's doing for sure. He's definitely he has a different approach. Seems like a very good players coach.
Oh yeah.
Puts their interests kind of first in terms of not what's best for them, but what's best for the team too.
Exactly. There's no one, like, obviously Texas has some superstars or whatever on the team, but he doesn't focus on that one guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He coached Jake Locker.
There you go.
So his first year was 2021 and it was a losing season. They went 5-7.
Well, there you go. He trended up.
Yeah, clear that up. Because I remember him talking about that on like the last game day. He was saying how much like they've grown together with, all of his freshmen through the years. So,
well, that's awesome. I didn't remember when he first started coaching. I didn't really see he had that losing season, but he's trended up so fast. Like if you think about it, going from, what'd you say, a 5-7 team?
Yeah, 5-7, 3-6 in the Big 12.
Jesus. Yeah, that's horrible. to a 5-7 team, 3-6 in the Big 12 from then to now leading the SEC and most likely the team that's going to win the SEC.
5-7, 8-5, 12-2, 8-1.
Pretty damn good. But anyway, that concludes the story of Steve Sarkisian and his life. Now, I got a couple more questions for you guys before we move on to like emergency stuff and just a little bit of tips there. And then the rehab, I'll let you take it from there, Tyler. But first question. So while it was a defect in his heart, do you think anything else possibly contributed to his aneurysm?
One, arterial blood flow, any blockages, things like that. Another detail I think about is maybe even dental health. That could be an interesting take.
Okay. Explain that a little.
Just from a full spectrum approach, if he had any sort of calcification going on there, he might have had some dental gum health related issues also. Just over time, you might have some things go hand in hand with that. And then I'm thinking varicose veins, things that don't allow proper flow just throughout the capillary system and the respiratory system.
Okay.
Possible fluid in the lungs, pneumonia.
I didn't read anything about pneumonia, but I agree with everything else. I mean, that could definitely be a contributor. Ryan, you got any other ideas?
Maybe the drinking could have played a factor.
That is kind of what I was alluding to. That's a good one. Anything else?
So how well does rehab, like, does that help, physically too? Like, obviously it's to stop, but do you think they build them up to where, like, they look at their health and think, oh, we got to make them get better physically like that too?
No.
Oh, I would say 100%.
Yeah, I think rehab is just about quitting whatever you're doing. Like that, like
And
AA.
depending on what rehab you're talking about.
He's not. I don't think you don't mean like cardiac rehab. You mean like Alcoholics Anonymous, that kind of shit. Right?
Whatever he went to.
Yeah. So the rehab for drinking was like, rehab for drinking and drugs and stuff. I don't think they do
more addiction based. I would say they would.
Do they do exercise activity? I guess they do.
I would hope they do, because I feel like addiction and inactivity go highly hand in hand.
100%.
I'm not saying they have to do a workout, but wouldn't they have to do like a physical, like just to make sure what they've done to themselves already is like healthy to keep moving forward with quitting and all that?
Possibly. I'm not actually sure.
And of course, everybody says going cold turkey is not the way to go about things like that too. So
not if you're really addicted. No, that's going to hurt you.
So kind of creating a program that tapers down to reach optimal levels and optimal health, less dependency. That's how I would expect that program to work, but I don't have hands-on experience with an addiction-based or rehab based clinic like that.
For sure. I'm not entirely sure. But the only thing I could think of too is like with the drinking, I mean, that doesn't help blood flow, that reduces cardiac efficiency, cardiac output, all that kind of thing. I know patients with CHF, if they drink, their CHF really just worsens.
Mm-hmm.
So the drinking definitely could have had a part in this. Also, aneurysms form in arteries because of, I might butcher the way it's pronounced. Hang on. I think it's arteriosclerosis. Is that basically the hardening of arteries, Tyler?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Leading
So
into varicose veins and
exactly. So kind of what you were piggybacking off of what you were saying, like that leads to these type of things where it's like either an aneurysm or a dissection or clots or just
Stroke.
Well, yeah, the stroke from clots, anything like that. So there's definitely a few other things that could have affected it, but the main thing was the valve. The reason the valve was such a problem is because the heart wasn't perfusing the amount it needed to. It wasn't working properly. It was having to work harder than it should have just to get out the proper amount. So that also could have caused things like regurgitation, which causes a backup in the arteries, which causes the blood pressure to increase, which causes those arteries to expand, which causes an aneurysm, which is a ballooning effect of the artery itself. So that's obviously the main cause. But his drinking 100% didn't help.
No, not at all. Also less oxygen within his system, like pulse oximeter readings, things like that, just not being optimal.
Yeah. Exactly. So, to my next one, I'm actually going to skip this question because we've already talked about it and answered it. Let me see. Oh, and I kind of answered my own question, this other question too. Whoops. Oh well.
It's so smart.
I didn't mean to do that. Oh well. So just to kind of go over the medical issue again, basically had a bicuspid heart valve, which is usually congenital, which is really only noticed when the patient starts having symptoms. And same thing kind of with an aneurysm. You really don't notice it until it's too late because an aneurysm doesn't really show a lot of symptoms until it's either about to rupture or it does rupture. So it makes sense why Sark never really knew about it.
Right.
And basically, this is the other question I was going to ask you. So just to go over just the aortic aneurysm part. Again, it's the swelling of the aortic wall. Most of the time, it can be felt if the aneurysm occurs in the abdomen area because your aorta, the artery, comes all the way down through the abdomen before it splits into the femoral arteries going down into the legs. But most of the time, if you have an aneurysm, most of the time it's actually in your abdomen and you can actually feel it bulging out, like right in the middle of your abs. And it's also like a high intense, like pulsating feeling as well if it's really bad. But his, it's from the sounds of it, it was actually up closer to the heart. So again, that's kind of hard to diagnose without doing like CT scans or whatever else they did in order to really see what's going on in his chest. And like I was saying, usually there's no symptoms, but whenever it is about to rupture, or if it does rupture, the patient may experience like pain in their chest or back area mimicking a heart attack. It might seem like a heart attack. And if the rupture occurs, it's rapid and fatal internal bleeding, like we were talking about earlier. So I was going to ask you guys two more questions. If you guys were EMTs and you had a patient with a suspected aortic aneurysm, that's all you know, what are you doing? Ryan, you go first.
Put them in the CT scan.
You're not at the hospital. You're at their house.
Getting out my night vision goggles.
Okay. What are you doing once you got your night vision goggles on?
Looking through now.
No, come on. Keep going. It's fine.
Okay, let's see.
This is where Chuck likes to flex a little bit.
No, well, I think it's fun. Like, I mean, I want you guys to make it fun. If you don't know,
maybe
you can make up something if you want. That's all I'm trying to do.
I would say maybe there's like an irregular heartbeat or that's
okay.
Because if you're trying to find something in the heart, I don't know how you can find something you can't see.
Are you asking if it's already happened? Or
no, like you show up and you've gone through your whole diagnosis. Like the only thing you could think of is aortic aneurysm. That is like what you suspect.
Fact.
What do you do? What are you going to do as the EMT now, basically?
Put them in the ambulance.
Okay. Good start.
Take them to the hospital.
Tyler, what are you doing?
Somebody's got to drive.
Yeah, I've not been trained on this, so
that's okay. Like I said, you guys can make this, like, you could just make up something. Like, it doesn't have to, you don't have to be serious.
All right, put them on the stretcher, right? Throw them in the room back. Get some whoppers.
There you go.
Yeah. Patty meal.
This is so bad.
Perfect.
I mean,
that's good.
He said he's cutting it, so chill out.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just make sure. So you're saying it's present.
Suspects it.
Yeah, like you
Suspects it.
like that is what you think is going on.
And patient is alert and aware.
They're alert, aware, they're oriented, they know what's going on, they have pain in their chest, but you don't think it's a heart attack. You think it's an aortic aneurysm because you can actually feel it in their abdomen. What are you doing?
Well, one, you're not going to lay them on their front side by any means. From my experience, seeing like a calcified aorta through an X-ray,
Mhm.
like a chiropractor is not going to lay them on a table on their front side and try and adjust their thoracics for risk of aneurysm or anything like that to affect the calcified aorta. From this, if I suspect that, I don't know what type of medication I'm giving them. I would just make sure they're not doing anything drastic from getting up and down super fast, just making sure vitals are stable,
Okay.
possibly an IV. Overall, I would just make sure they're stable, alert, and that we're not getting into any bad positions.
Are
Okay.
we,
Let me help.
do you think
Go ahead.
it's, yeah. So are we putting something on them, or are we telling them not to do something? Are we doing something to them?
Okay, so I'll be honest with you. This one's a bit of a trick question. The only right answer is actually what Ryan said right off the bat. Throw him in the ambulance and get him to the hospital as fast as possible because the only thing that's going to fix the situation is surgery.
I
That's it.
mean, that's the only thing.
Yeah, like you were saying too, Tyler, you weren't wrong either. You want to get them in a good position that's not going to cause it to rupture. If you hit a bump in the road and they're laying on their stomach, that could be a problem.
Yeah.
Later,
So
Yeah.
so again, like you could give them oxygen. That's really the only thing you could do if it's an aneurysm. Um, Now there's one other thing that oftentimes gets confused with an aneurysm, which is an aortic dissection. Now, let me ask you guys this. What's the difference between an aneurysm and a dissection? I'm gonna let Tyler go first this time.
okay. Trash.
Dissection where it's not completely, it's almost like leaky.
Okay.
Like a splice, like it cut.
So like is the artery open and like actively bleeding internally? Is that what you mean?
Not flowing, right? But it's like slowly bleeding internally.
Okay.
Mm.
Ryan?
Did this happen
Oh.
to, it was a Houston cornerback slash safety. He got hit on a pass over the middle and
Oh, I have no idea.
he
Maybe.
had, I don't know if this is aorta, but he had an artery tear on the field
Yeah,
and he
so
literally almost died and he still got drafted first round.
yeah, when you say tear, that makes me think it's a dissection, not an aneurysm. So, Ryan, give me your guess and then I'll kind of go over that real quick too.
This sounds like it's cut, like a cut of the valve.
So, like he's just bleeding internally, basically, like the aorta is open.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. See, you're close, Ryan. Tyler, you're a little closer, but I couldn't quite tell by your verbiage if you were meaning what I think you were meaning. But basically, aneurysm again is the bulging out of the artery, and if it ruptures, it's considered a ruptured aneurysm. But the aneurysm is just like the ballooning effect that you can see in an artery. So a dissection, there's 3 layers to the artery. It's the outer layer, middle layer, and then the inner layer. A dissection occurs with high impact stuff. So like football, but most of the time it's car crashes. And a dissection is when the inner layer gets partially torn and then the blood starts to flow, but the artery is still intact. But the blood kind of goes outside of that initial inner layer. So that's what a dissection is.
So it's on the inner layer of the
artery.
Yeah, okay.
So like the artery's not open. He's not necessarily internally bleeding, but the artery
Usually
itself.
It's okay.
Yeah.
usually caused by trauma in
Yeah,
most cases.
exactly. And basically the only other thing you could do from an emergency medical standpoint is if it's a dissection, you could apply nitro if their systolic BP is over 90. But you don't want to give aspirin.
That nitroglycerin,
Yeah, nitroglycerin. Do you know what nitro is for?
would that be stabilizing blood pressure?
Basically, it's a vasodilator.
Right.
So
Okay.
yes. But that's why you want to make sure that their systolic BP is over 90 because you don't want to tank their BP either. And you don't want to give aspirin because you want platelets. Because you don't want to promote you basically just don't want to promote more bleeding, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
That's why you don't give aspirin.
Which
Like you would for a heart attack.
is interesting because when our grandfather had that stroke back in April, he actually took aspirin like immediately after he felt off.
Well, aspirin actually might work for a stroke. That might be a good idea.
So,
But yeah,
I don't know if that helped him out or accelerated what he's experiencing.
If-
I didn't see all the imaging or anything.
Mhm. I gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, they only really tell us to give aspirin for heart attacks. I don't recall the stroke protocol. It's usually there's only a few meds you can give as far as stroke goes. And it has to be within like an 8-hour time frame of their last known normal. I don't know.
Because I think he said he was working out, then he vasovagaled, and
Oh
then
yeah.
felt off, and just like his coordination was off. And then apparently he took that, and then things just weren't getting better. And then that's when he ended up going to the ER.
I gotcha. How's he doing, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, he's good. Recently had dinner with him not too long ago, so
Nice.
he's chipper,
Well,
cutting jokes.
Happy to hear that. That's good.
He's still trying to get better, doing his thing.
Of course. Never ends.
Never ends.
Even when you're healthy, still try to be better.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's wrap up this emergency section. So, last thing I was going to go over, sometimes these kind of patients, like with these congenital heart defects, can have the symptoms of heart failure, like I was talking about earlier, because of things like regurgitation, backed up blood flow, and things like that, just because it's not perfusing enough. So, some of those symptoms that you can look for if you think somebody's experiencing this is shortness of breath, lower extremity edema, exercise intolerance, difficulty sleeping flat, pink frothy sputum, basically just spit up if it's like pink and frothy, kind of shows that there's a backup of blood and whatnot, or in the mucus and stuff like that. Sudden weight gain, or JVD, which is jugular venous distension, which is prominent right here. If someone's jugular is really sticking out really hard and you can feel it and stuff and it won't go away, that's typically a sign of heart failure, just because that blood is so far backed up there. And the treatment for that, as far as the emergency side goes, it's basically just kind of the same for like a myocardial infarction, which is just the medical terminology for a heart attack. You want to ensure the airway, provide positive pressure ventilation if breathing is inadequate, which is a CPAP machine, that like mask that a lot of people wear at night. You can assist the patient in providing nitroglycerin if the patient is prescribed. You can also make sure the patient is sitting up instead of lying flat, because that can actually increase their discomfort and worsen their condition. And as always, make sure you got an AED available in case they croak and go into cardiac arrest.
In case they croak. I mean, you're 100% right, though.
Yeah. But anyway, that's all I got as far as the medical side of things, the emergency tips and stuff. There's not a whole lot that you could do because he wasn't necessarily an emergency situation. It was definitely getting there, but they found it quick enough. Within 4 days, he had the surgery. So, I mean, as far as an aneurysm, an aortic aneurysm, that's all you can do. You just got to get into the hospital and they got to fix you up. But now, Tyler, why don't you tell us a little bit about the cardiac rehab for this?
So intensive cardiac rehabilitation programs for valve replacement or widowmaker surgery. Like you said, widowmaker referring to severe blockage in the left anterior descending artery, which we've all known and talked about. You did a good job describing that this is life-threatening if it is a heart attack, of course, or if there is a aneurysm of the aorta, 100% life-threatening, needs surgery immediately, and very intensive on the cardiac rehab side.
One question for you, though. So why do they call it widowmaker? What's like the percentages of, say, like if it gets the clot occludes the artery?
If you are married, you're probably making your spouse a widow.
Exactly. It's that severe. It happens that quick with this specific artery. That's why they call it that, because it's the death rate's like what, like 80% or something?
It's pretty high.
Yeah.
There's not a very high survival rate from it. So it's a big deal, and you have to act very quick. You have to respond very fast. After undergoing surgery for this condition, intensive cardiac rehabilitation is highly recommended for optimizing your recovery, improving your cardiovascular health further, and then reducing further risk of complications that go along with what takes place. So managing symptoms, managing vitals, usually probably day to day is recommended. Just making sure everything is stable, which nowadays a lot of people come out of that with a lot of medication that is highly regulated, very regimented, scheduled. Dosing is a very big concern within the situation. So you want to do proper dosage, proper timing. Don't want to do too much, don't want to do too little. So internal medicine doctors and not pain management, but whoever's managing medication has a pretty major duty in this aspect. The following program is designed for the post-surgery phase, like we just talked about. And you always want to consult with your healthcare provider, professional cardiologist, before beginning or entering the rehab program. You want to get clear for it. And a lot of times post-surgery, you're doing a lot of just ambulating almost to tolerance. So meaning doing your best to be able to get on your feet, seeing if you can walk, which was essentially ambulating. And sometimes that's movement within within your own bed at the hospital, like any kind of general movement to increase the heart rate and make sure that you can stabilize that and maintain that too without passing out or, major vital changes, any further symptoms being exaggerated, exacerbated. So it is very progressive, starting with the most basic low intensity activities, which occupational therapists, exercise physiologists, physical therapists intervene in these situations immediately after the surgery, especially with a good healthcare team and approach.
So I will say right there, just to cut you off just for 1 second.
Yeah.
The crazy thing to me is not with just like the traumatic injuries that we've gone over to, but like now the medical one, now that I think about it a lot more, is just like the size of the team and how many people it takes just to get one person back to normal or back to healthy.
It takes a village for
it goes
all of these surgeries.
Surgeon, cardiologist, exercise physiologist, OT, PT,
internal medicine,
nurse, internal medicine, nurse practitioner, Yeah, like, dude, like it that like the more you think about it, it's ridiculous how big of a team like you
And
have and you need every single one of those people serves a purpose. It's crazy.
consistent follow-ups, home health, CNAs, medical assistants, whatever that looks like. I mean, that's
Even case management, working with the insurance for you.
big time, 100%. Whether you can get to and from where you need to go, like having rides
Rideshare,
or
yeah.
even being able to get in the car, it's huge. So,
Yeah, I don't know why, but that thought just popped in my head. It's just ridiculous how many people are needed.
and support system too, mental health, just kitchen sink, essentially.
Exactly. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, the main goal is to kind of gradually increase intensity as tolerated. So creating a baseline of what is possible and building on top of that. Phase one, like I stated earlier, is acute recovery. So right after the surgery, promoting early mobility, whatever that looks like, patient to patient, it's always going to be different because you could have blood clotting post surgery. You could have an embolism or who knows what could take place. Um, Pneumonia, fluid buildup, blood buildup, something that just creates complications is always possible after something like this. So, I mean, was Sark more lucky that he was younger when this was found? I wouldn't say lucky, but it might have gave him more of an advantage that he was
He
a
would
little
have
more
had
active,
he
a
would
little
have
more
had an
active.
easier recovery.
Right. He's a little more active than somebody who is completely sedentary. So,
Right.
I mean, somebody who's completely sedentary might struggle just lifting their legs up or lifting their arms over their head, and that could create them to pass out. So, it's something you have to really have high attention to detail and heavily monitor, or you, as somebody in that role as a PT, OT, XFIS, you have to get your team involved like right away, immediately, or you have to put a stop to whatever you're doing and then reassess. So, if something like that happens, you have to, of course, documentation's big on every single case like that, but getting the team involved so you communicate effectively on where the patient or person is within that care. So 1 to 2 weeks might look the same for one person and might look different for the other. And it could go all the way down to as basic as diaphragmatic breathing. Um, if somebody is able to do that, they can progress to deeper breathing, longer holds, and then increasing repetition there. But early ambulating, walking to tolerance. I mean, recommended it says 5 to 10 minutes, 2 to 3 times a day, but for some people that might even be 1 minute, that might even be 30 seconds, and trying to build on top of that, and then getting to where you can get to 20 minutes, 30 minutes, hour. That way you're not super heavily dependent, just gradually increasing as long as the symptoms don't create chest pain, dizziness, fatigue, shortness of breath, things like that, which some cases, shortness of breath, fatigue, like is kind of essential in building up in that endurance. But if it's excessive where you see vitals change drastically, or you just see things not stabilize as quick as they should, then that's where you have to get the team involved. Also, depending on the surgery, range of motion is big because you also have to think of if they do bust your chest open, there's so many things that tighten up around the chest, the shoulders, arms. Some people struggle to just get their arms over their head. So you have to think about that too, because in some cases that could create restriction around your neck, arteries and veins there too. So you want to try and improve range of motion throughout the entire system and not just think, oh, we're just trying to ambulate and do cardio all the time, which comes into flexibility and strengthening also throughout the whole system.
Well, I think just real quick, I think that was a huge part of Sark's rehabilitation too, just because he talked about how he had to like relearn how to walk and everything. You know what I mean?
oh,
And that
100%.
range of motion and everything, like that takes a key part of that.
Getting up and out of a chair, like if you use your arms for assistance, is different. Going to the bathroom,
Yeah.
granted, getting into a car or driving, all that. Even using your phone,
Just all, yeah, pretty much like relearning how to just do everything.
and that could go all the way down to like neuropathy, peripheral neuropathy, nerve compression, just excessive tightness that could create something like that too, which
Exactly.
there's just a lot that goes into it. And then kind of once you get up to speed, you really want to try and focus on improving endurance strength without overloading the system. But that just goes back hand in hand with.
Tyler, hang on one second. I'm so sorry.
I
think
can't
Ryan-
even look anymore.
I think Ryan, I'm like
What's
gushing
going on
blood.
over there?
I'm like, first of all, I'm gushing blood over here because I picked a scab, and
Oh
I was
my
trying to, I
gosh.
was trying to let you finish, and I think Ryan saw that, and he's got a mustache on. So hang on one second.
I was wondering why you're smiling the whole time over there.
Ryan, were you laughing at me? What are you laughing at? Okay.
It's like this, and just looking at it. I feel
Well, I don't know, it's bugging me, and then like the scab came off, and it just started bleeding again. I was like, God damn it! All right,
It's like
hang
you tell
on.
yourself shaving.
I did. That's exactly how it happened. Hang on, I'll be right back. 1 second.
Just a quick shave over there.
Yeah.
it felt like a fourth grade, or not fourth grade, but like a middle school speech, and I just kept laughing at my friend or something.
Just standing in front of the class, Chuck's bleeding out at his desk.
Oh man, sorry.
Dang, I was rolling.
Yeah, you were, because you didn't even notice.
Well, I have my notes covering his face right now.
Oh,
So I couldn't even tell. I was just like, why is he smiling so hard? Because I could see him smiling, but I was like, I don't know what's going on. Kind of funny.
don't you miss those times when you're like in a place that's really quiet, and then you and somebody just uncontrollably laugh?
Yeah. It was the worst.
I feel like I did that every time when we weren't supposed to.
Or you're just holding a laugh in and then you just rip ass.
Maybe not that.
You never know.
That's laughing hard.
That's laughing pretty hard. Or you just really holding it back.
All right, my bad, boys. Okay.
You good?
Yeah. I was trying to hold it together because I could see fucking Ryan like dying laughing out of his chair.
It's just one of those things when you can't stop laughing.
I know. Well, I held it back for a while, and then I was like trying to talk to Tyler, and then I like felt the blood in my hand.
A little patch, little Band-Aid on the chin.
Yeah, it should be fine now.
But what I was gonna branch off into
Go for
after
it.
that of like heavily monitoring everything is a lot of those PTs, OTs, ex-phys in the hospital. They do a lot of education too. So education through kind of what to expect from the home life, what to look for nutrition, heart healthy things, like all the way down to sleep recovery, just any and everything essentially. But I feel like that's not talked about enough, that the education side, aside from the actual therapy, the rehab is something that is a big role they play into. So nutrition, medication, stress management, all is heavily taken account for. But warning signs throughout the process, like we said before, chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness, excessive fatigue. So even if you're just chilling, like resting rate, and you're still feeling that excessive fatigue, there's probably something wrong. Early recovery, 3 to 6 weeks, which is still pretty fresh, is still trying to maintain that gradual progression for cardiovascular exercise, improving endurance and strength without overloading the heart, still
Which-
progressively improving flexibility and range of motion.
which I want to point out, this early recovery stage is where Sark apparently was when he went back to coaching. He was
which
at
is
3 weeks.
fast.
It's
It's
insane.
fast.
It's insane.
No, which watching that documentary and then hearing you say that too, I was like, man, he's just hungry to get after it. So internal drive too is big. Also, kind of knowing the gravity of what's taking place and how that affects your daily lifestyle in every detail.
Yeah, and motivation's a huge factor, and he was highly motivated to get back out there. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Big time. In terms of aerobic exercise, a lot of people talk about zone 2 cardio, meaning like you're able to maintain a conversation while doing cardio as well. That's pretty major within this type of rehab. So if you're able to do 20, even 10 minutes, 5 minutes of cardio while maintaining a conversation through the process, that's a huge plus. I mean, that shows progression. And that could be a small detail that maybe you're trying to distract the patient a little bit so they're not thinking about it too much. And then they start achieving that. And then you're like, look at you go, you're coming along. You're really improving. For me, I try to get a little more aggressive to 30 minutes sometimes if it's less days of the week, but minimum 20 minutes, 5 to 6 times throughout the week is where you want to be at, where you can maintain that zone 2 cardio and see that gradual progression too. Strength training, I always think it's a big focus because just the way you can improve like stroke volume of the heart and improving blood pressure and maintaining levels where you can go back to your resting rate at a faster rate indicates a higher level of fitness. So when you can implement strength training, you're not only going to improve your strength, but you're also going to improve your range of motion, your mobility, your ability to do things day to day too, like sitting down, getting up, going to the restroom, taking a shower, bath, whatever that looks like for you. But just staying at it. It
Yeah,
takes that internal drive.
they all go hand in hand together. Basically, one helps the other while kind of like the body's its whole system where one thing helps the other thing, which passes it on to that thing. You know what I mean? It just together.
Right. And then depending on medication, like watching things that are super heavy in sodium, or like if you're taking blood thinners or something like that, you're probably on diuretics. So trying to stay away from excessive fluid. But once you get along to more of the 7 to 12 weeks post operation, you still want to have that gradual improvement. You don't want to stay kind of baseline, like intermediate, where you're still just trying to improve range of motion and we're still hamstring stretching. That's like not what we want to do. And I know positioning too, like sleeping wise, you don't want to have your head too low below the heart. Also, you want to try and keep the head above the heart for recovery and just safety of circulation. But you want to kind of get to the point where you can do cardio where it's not as easy to discuss throughout the process, where you're sweating a little bit. It's a little more tiresome, but not excessive fatigue, where once you're done, you're still struggling breathing wise. So that might look like your respiration rate's improving, meaning you're not taking as many breaths per minute. You have more stable breathing. Post exercise also. During, if it's more intense, of course, you're not going to expect to have a very low respiration rate by any means, but you still want to have that intensity to where you can see those levels change and then
Yeah,
getting back to baseline at a faster rate.
exactly. If you're not getting back to baseline and you're still having that high like respiratory rate, even 30 minutes after a session, you still got a problem. Something else is going on there still. Like you're
Right.
saying.
And then just getting to know who you're working with too. They always talk about using the example of FIT, FITT, like function of exercise, intensity of exercise, type of exercise, and time of exercise. So getting to know who you're working with. Do they have stairs in their house? Do they have to walk up stairs to get to their door? Kind of implementing things like that. I always like to do step tests, just kind of check to see where their endurance is, strength too for the lower extremities. And then that also improves lower back pain, things like that. Because post operation, you're going to be probably not too comfortable within the lower back to mid back areas, especially if you're just pretty sedentary for a little bit or
Mhm.
immobile. So, not only thinking about improving the aerobic system, your aerobic capacity, your strength, but also reducing pain in those areas that could arise from the surgery or what comes with not being able to do what you do every day. Um, so whether that be your shoulders from struggling to get up or being immobile, or same thing for the lower back. If you're not used to extending your back as much, you fatigue those muscles a lot easier. So building up strength for like the spinal erectors, the abdomen, of course, to be able to support your
Spinal
body.
wetters?
Do what?
The spinal wetters?
The the muscles that help you erect your spine.
Oh, I was just making a bad joke. Sorry. Continue.
So I always think like functional movements overall, whether that's like squats, step ups, being able to hinge at the hips again, bending and flexing the knees, whether you can push or press, using weights pretty light, like 1 to 10 pounds initially, and just gradually building up through there, or even resistance bands, starting light and building your way up. I always like to kind of do, first set of a higher repetition, very light resistance band, then more medium. So like say first set you do 20, very light. You're just trying to go for motion,
Mhm.
condition the system. Second set, we're going to taper down the repetitions, go for a little more endurance. Third and fourth set, we're going to try and build some more strength there. So it might be less repetition, but more gravity on intensity and resistance. And you want to do that at least 2 to 3 times a week for the upper and lower half, just to really get back to speed. Uh,
So, question for you. So, I know your main field is like exercise physiology, right? Do
mhm.
you see a lot of cardiac rehab patients that you have to kind of put these guys through too, like this extensive program?
For sure. I've worked with post heart attack patients, post open heart surgery patients, post stroke.
So
Um,
you do cardiac rehab because I know they have people that specialize in just cardiac rehab.
right. And you
But
see that a
you're
lot in the hospital setting
Yeah, that's
heavily.
true. Well, they're doing like stress tests and stuff like that. But I was just curious if you focus solely on like more like the traumatic side of things with injuries versus medical issues like this. I wasn't quite sure. I think I remember you telling me that you did, but I just wasn't sure.
For sure. And it might not be like an active EKG attached to the patient, depending on your facility.
Hmm.
Could be maybe just checking pulse throughout the process, and then symptom checking, having those conversations with the patient too, and just monitoring pretty heavily. Like you're not going to have somebody like that and work with like 6 other people and just think, oh, yeah, they're fine on their own.
No, if
You're
they're
going
a
to,
heart attack patient, that's your sole focus pretty much for that day.
right. It should be one on one, like
Right.
heavy attention to detail, like very high priority, because they're more than likely very hesitant to do a lot of things, especially if you're challenging them. Depending on the individual, they might
Yeah.
question what you're doing a lot. So you have
And
to kind of
that's
have a strong mental approach and a little bit of backbone too, to have them trust that you know what to do within a case like that. So um, you kind of have to earn their trust too. But
Yeah.
that's why I think getting to know who you're working with is huge, because you don't want to just think, oh, this random guy who has no idea why I'm here Just
doesn't
trying
care that
to
I just had a heart attack or whatever. Yeah.
right, 100%. And there is a lot of mental stress that comes with that, and you have to reinstill confidence with people that have come out of a post-traumatic situation that, like, you are capable to get back to this speed that you need to be at or even better. And that also takes a team too, because, you don't want to have them only have that comfortability with you, but you want them to have that comfortability when they're at home, around family, or with another provider or another healthcare facility, because they're probably making rounds to so many other medical offices. If they're not just coming to you for the most part. So, and the tough part about healthcare too is so many different providers might tell you something different. So you kind of
Well,
have to prove and show them that they are capable so they don't have to
mhm.
second guess literally everything,
Well,
you
and
know?
that's the problem with just healthcare in general. Not necessarily like diagnosing patients or whatnot, but like you learn something in the books and it's like very cookie cutter, right?
Right.
Whereas in real world situations, it's not so cut and dry. It's not so simple. Like there's tons of various factors at play. Like you could have three doctors tell you different things, but all of them are somewhat right to a degree, you know? It's like it's kind of weird in certain situations, but
You got to find that middle ground. You got to go about it gracefully. You have to have the right verbiage and wording. You can't be
mhm.
too extreme, but you have to know when to push and when to just kind of calm down and relax as well. I did talk about functional movement and exercise, but another thing that I like to include more on the advanced stage is I've even had a post stroke patient do a variation of burpees just to
Oh shit.
see. I know. I mean, I worked with him for quite some time, but it was more so to see how he responded with that change in elevation, like head to the ground, standing up,
Versus yeah,
and
see if he
being able to do
vagaled
it
or anything
repeatedly.
or
Right. And
because
more
that's
of
the main
just
concern if you're doing burpees. If you're doing that up and down constantly, you could vagal, especially if you have a blood flow problem.
100%. And like I said, that's advanced stage. Like, I would not recommend doing that immediately
No,
by
of
any
course, of
means.
course, of course.
And of course, having modifications to it, whether that's being able to lay all the way flat and get to your knees to standing, or just, adding that jump in there too, or maybe they're just laying on a table and then getting up off the table and then doing it again, or maybe they're just sitting in the chair, getting back up. There's a lot of different ways you can modify it and kind of have some fun with it too. Um,
Yeah.
but
Well, that's it's sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but that's a funny thing you bring that up. I feel like whenever I've ever done physical therapy, I get so bored so quickly. But if you can keep it interesting for the patient, that helps them engage so much more. And I feel like it helps them improve so much faster. You know what I mean?
I agree for sure. And kind of makes them want to come back too, right?
Exactly.
They can see that progression and they're always going to be on their toes. They're like, what's he going to do today?
Yeah.
Um, so you can always kind of change things and, add a little bit more to it and then just have fun with it. Cause I mean, it's not a fun process.
No, not at all.
And I always try to make it to where patient has no idea what's going to get thrown at them. So they have to be ready for whatever. So I try to make it different every single time. That's how I like to approach it. Like something similar, but targeting the same things, but just a different type or different intensity, different function.
Well, and that really shows that you care. And I think the patients see that too. That's why they like you.
I think that's a good point. think that's a good point. And yeah, like I said, just throughout that process, always educating, heart healthy diet, weight management, which is huge. If you can lose 20 to 50 pounds within the process, you're completely changing that lifestyle. You're reducing a whole lot of stress through your skeletal system for one, rather than just your organs. Cortisol becomes more balanced within the system, like hormones start to regulate a little bit more. Your blood work gets better. There's just a lot of detail that goes into it. Being able to have more oxygen within your blood, and then being able to get back to regular physical activity unmonitored is the ultimate goal. And then just continual follow-ups with healthcare providers to monitor the progress and ensure optimal recovery too. So sometimes you might have those EKG follow-ups, you know, making sure the QRS waves and everything through the heart is responding properly, flowing properly, pulse is normal, heart rate's normal, blood pressure is within range, watching the max heart rate. Essentially, you don't want to go past a certain number depending on the age, which it also is kind of different depending on fitness level, and also depends on the phase of recovery, depends on the person. But continued symptom monitoring, something changes like constant chest pain, maybe something that occurs overnight, discomfort, shortness of breath, away from a facility, dizziness away from a facility, excessive fatigue, nausea, sweating, vomiting. Definitely communicate that with medical professionals and just continue to get those regular checkups just in case, because it's good to hear that everything's normal rather than being surprised by something.
100%.
And then just the psychosocial support too, whether that's, you know, emotional instability, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress. Having that support system is big. Having healthcare professionals that really listen to you and hear your story and not just assume, well, they're just anxious, or, well, they're just this type of person. Well, you didn't necessarily go through what they went through. So just slow down. I know some places see a lot of people, so they might try and just put this label on somebody really fast, but you have to just kind of slow down and really hear what's going on too.
Well, it's funny too. I was looking through my, my EMS book, and one of the symptoms of CHF and like having an aortic aneurysm is increased anxiety just because of like what's going on in your body. You may not know what's going on, even if you've never experienced it or anything like that before. But for whatever reason, I think it's like the increased heart rate, increased blood flow and things like that, that increases anxiety as well. So it's pre and post as far as that goes as well. Like that's always a symptom of that whole situation.
Right. And I've heard a lot of stories about people going to the ER thinking they might have had a heart attack, but they might have just had an anxiety attack. But it's also good to hear that that's the case rather than, just thinking, oh, it's just anxiety. And then you're like, no, you did have a heart attack. So
Well,
you just can't write some of those things off.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you about the time I had my mom take me to the ER when I had a panic attack in college?
Yes, you did actually.
Yeah.
But
Perfect example of one of those times. I was
you're
like, I
not
don't
the
know
only
what's
one
going
though,
on.
You're not the only one. I've heard it from many guys and girls of all ages too. If there is like a pain, was it the left shoulder, left back shoulder, then that could indicate potential risk for heart attack.
It's the whole left arm in men in general. Women are a little different. It's funny. There's a whole history of the reason why most men are diagnosed properly and women aren't. Basically, the history as far as like medical history goes is most of the time doctors were doing diagnosis and tests and stuff like that just on men up through like the 1950s and stuff like that.
Actually didn't know that.
Yeah, like and that's why most of the stuff is very accurate for men, but not so accurate for women. Like for example, like if you're having a heart attack as a man, most of the time it's left shoulder, left arm pain, numbness, whatever, chest pain. But for women, most of the time their pain is actually in their lower back or somewhere else in their body, like abdomen, lower back. That's kind of where their pain radiates to. So it's a little different, but they didn't really kind of figure that out until they really started doing tests on women more so in that space. So it was kind of because I guess, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was like a sexist thing throughout the times, throughout the 1900s, or if it was just that they thought that, you're human. So if we just test all men, it's the same thing for women or whatever. But like the history of it, everything's pretty accurate for men. Women are very, very different as far as like their symptoms and stuff like that for various medical conditions.
And that could be accessibility too at that time frame.
Also true. Yeah.
But I mean, it's a great point. The anatomy is very different, male to female, from estrogen to testosterone to you name it. I mean, it is interesting how it responds very differently.
Oh, yeah.
That pretty much wraps up the rehab approach. You just want to really see that gradual progression over time and maintain steady vitals over the process. Make sure diet reinforcement is there. You want to make sure medication is properly managed, stress management's there. If there's smoking going on in the process, you probably want to cut back. Excessive drinking, probably want to cut back.
And it's funny, most patients don't.
Eat berries. Eat blueberries.
You know how many patients I've seen in the hospital that are on an oxygen tank, like nasal cannula, that are puffing a cigarette in the parking lot or something like that? I'm like, you're out of your mind. You're gonna blow up. Like, most patients don't listen as far as that stuff goes, but it is important to at least relay that information.
And in places of higher elevation too, you and I have both seen it. I mean, there's people that might have those instances and now they have an oxygen tank with them everywhere they go.
Yeah.
Which is
Definitely.
not convenient at all. You have to wheel that thing around or you're wearing a backpack or, that's just extra stress, I would say. I mean, there's extra things you have to worry about. And you don't want to instill more worry after something like that, completely changing lifestyle. It's pretty drastic.
100%. Well, should we get into our discussion topics?
Let's hammer it. Let's do it.
All right. So I'll start with Ryan. What would you rate this injury / medical emergency? As far as on our scale, I know it's kind of hard to compare it because all we've done is trauma so far, but like, where would you put it on our scale?
Yeah, we got quite an array of injuries. So I'm thinking like a 6.4. I think it's not too crazy because he doesn't know about it. It's not something you really feel, but it is dangerous and could be a snap of the fingers. Like death is pretty serious and you don't want that. So I think that boosts it up for me, just how serious it can be. And then maybe not as much because he doesn't really feel anything until he has to have surgery.
Yeah, I definitely, I pretty much agree with you on that. Like the pain level thing is different than anything we've like really gone over so far. So that definitely knocks it down a few pegs. But like you were saying too, as far as the severity of the possibility of what could have happened. And the surgery that he had to go through, open heart surgery, is obviously no joke. Cracking the ribs open, doing what they got to do as far as replacing the heart valve goes. I'd probably put it at a 7 myself, just because of that, just because of open heart surgery. But from a pain standpoint, I think that's what drops it by those 3 points or so.
Yeah, and I mean, one credit to any open heart doctor, any of the surgeons that do the operation, because it just blows my mind how they can replace a valve or create that surgical procedure in through the femoral artery into the heart. And then, I mean, that's very intricate. What sutures or you name it, however they have to approach the body,
Oh, yeah.
arterial sutures, making sure the heart's able to do its function, or even transplanting a heart. It's just a lot. It's a lot that goes into it, a lot of detail. It takes time, and some of those procedures take a really long time, but I would
Yeah.
probably rate it, just because this could be anybody, right? I mean, they could be anybody you're sitting next to at the grocery store, and next thing you know, they're in the ER. I would say it's about an 8. Not necessarily pain, an 8, maybe after the fact, that process of recovery could have a little bit more pain associated with it. But in terms of emergency, could lose a life if you don't have
Exactly.
the right accessibility or the right team. I mean, that's you kind of, or if you're in the wrong spot. What if you're in West Texas and you're in the car, and something happens?
Well, and that makes total sense from your perspective too, because you deal with the patients on the rehab side. So you really get to see what that necessarily intakes. As far as like me and Ryan, we haven't really dealt with that part of it. So I see why you rate it a little bit higher.
There's just a lot that goes into it from a day-to-day standpoint after it.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
It's nothing like a coma or anything like that, but um, it's an ongoing thing for almost a decade, if not more, of people being cautious of what they're doing.
I would agree 100%. So that concludes the rating. Next question. Not so serious note. Let's talk about the Cowboys.
Can we not?
What is going on in Jerry world? I don't is it Jerry's fault? Is it the way he designed the stadium to block the sun to his players on offense? Is it the fact that random people are allowed to do tours and they're constantly looking at the players during their workouts, and players have no privacy whatsoever at their own facilities? What's the issue?
There's just it's the Disney World of the NFL.
Yeah. We got the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight coming up, so you got that going on to just add on to the Cowboys fandom.
That's true. That's at AT&T Stadium, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, that's so ridiculous. Like, it's an amusement park. It's not a football stadium. It's not about football. It's not about winning.
Big
I don't
marketing project.
The YMCA.
It drives me nuts. I'm like, the Cowboys, I feel like could be so good. You're paying Dak however many millions, and he's out for the rest of the season. He's the most underperforming quarterback in the league.
It's a cash cow, dude.
I hate Dak. I hate Dak. I hate Dak, and I hate Jerry.
How about Dalvin Cook and Zeke?
I hate Zeke too. Why did we bring him back? He's past his prime. All he's good for is 2 yards at a time, tops.
And why do we not let him play or travel to Atlanta, and then we give him the ball on the goal line in the very next game multiple times just to see him fumble and get tackled for loss? And then that's what we're doing, dude.
I can't stand it. It makes me sick. I didn't watch the Eagles game. I was like, I don't even want to look at what's going on. I was kind of excited for Cooper Rush. I was like, maybe this man will step up and be our savior, our messiah. But like,
I thought so too. I thought he was going to light it up.
and I
But,
feel like just as a Cowboys fan, you're so hopeful every single year, and they just constantly disappoint us since the 90s.
well, they have a way to do it. I don't know how, but you just keep hoping it's different.
And
I
it
don't
never
think
is.
you hope anymore. Like I've gotten to the point where I don't really care about the Cowboys that much. It's
That's how I feel.
You know, it's laughable now. I mean, like every bad play, I'm like, yeah, that's
probably
going to happen.
Exactly.
then-
Like,
We make a play and we're like, I didn't know we could actually do that.
It has to be a CD insane catch for us to gain yards.
exactly. And it's like 20 yards at a time. It's not even a touchdown. And you're like, oh, well, maybe we got something going here. And then Dak throws it to 3 defenders when there's no receiver around. It's like, what the fuck? What are we doing?
One-handed screen 7 yards behind the line and we get 2 yards.
But I mean, the defense isn't all that great either.
That's
time
true.
We do score is when we get 45 points from the Saints.
Oh, same thing with the Lions. That Lions game was an embarrassment. What'd they do? They try to
all
like
that coming.
they had like what 3 offensive lineman touchdowns. Like is this a joke?
It was like JV team against varsity.
Yeah, they're playing
Pretty
around
much.
just to pad some stats. Like, let's get the fat boy some touchdowns. Like, dude, it pissed me off. But I don't know. I
I
don't
mean,
know what it is.
why don't we close the curtains?
That's what I'm saying. I think they finally didn't they just clear that they're allowed to have curtains now?
Dude, imagine paying like $3,000 for those tickets in the end zone and you can't see anything. It's probably more than $3,000 too.
Unbelievable. Just
Final
We're-
record for the season. What do you think? It's 3-7, right?
how many games are in the regular season? 18,
17, I think.
17?
We're gonna be like 4-13.
Yeah.
Sounds
I
good.
mean, I'll be a little more optimistic. I'll say 6-11. I think we can handle the Giants. That's about
almost a
it.
question mark now.
That's
The Giants
maybe.
are a question mark. You never know with them.
You
especially
really
on
don't.
Thanksgiving Day. I mean, we'll see. I'll be watching it.
No running
But-
game. We can't orchestrate an offense through the air. Like our furthest pass goes maybe 4 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. Like we don't spread the ball out at all.
We're basically just Stephen A. Smith's joke of the league. Like that man. Did you hear what he said the other day?
No.
He said the Cowboys should just tank the rest of the season, draft Shador Sanders, and hire Deion Sanders as the head coach.
Yeah,
Do
I
it.
saw something about that too.
Just do it.
I mean, he'd give us a better team than whatever we got right now. Like it's unbelievable. With the payroll that we have, I don't understand how they're not better. But they spend it all on Dak, who's been an underperforming quarterback since he got in the league. Besides that
CD's
one year he was
underperformed
up for
too.
MVP. See, you can't I feel like you can't blame it on CD. I feel like it's quarterback play.
Have you seen him run routes?
That's okay. That's all right. That's fair. But I feel like it's because he doesn't care anymore because the team sucks.
Dude,
That's
The
what
job.
I'm thinking. I
the
think it's
job.
the rest of the team.
Yeah. I don't know.
I get Dak doesn't play the greatest at times, but I'd rather him out there than like any other backup, really.
That's true.
Right
I'll give
now,
you
yeah,
that.
for sure. And it's not even CD, like just CD on the route running. It's the whole team. Like they're creating no separation.
They've all given up. They
They don't even
care.
try to extend the play. They'll like just kind of run, not trying to like sit in the open area. There's like very little football IQ that comes with it. It looks like
Well, it just looks like nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Probably. They got their money.
Exactly. It's like, I don't know. Anyway, we can move on from that.
I will say defense looked okay for the start of the game last game. Like, they looked all right. It looked like we had a chance.
Against the Eagles, I didn't see any of that. I'm telling you, I didn't watch any of that game.
Oh, we started off, forced a fumble, got the ball in like the 4-yard line. We got a pick, got a couple sacks. DeMarvion Overshone's looking pretty fast to the ball. He's shocking some other teams with his speed. There's some pluses there, but it's not enough to outweigh everything else.
Well, again, I'm not denying we have good players. It's just that I don't know, nobody's performing. Like Micah Parsons has been out. We lost to Marcus Lawrence as well. I don't even know if he did. Is Lawrence back yet? Who did he play last week?
Yeah, I think he should just retire and enjoy it. Be a dad.
Parsons is back. He played last week.
Parsons
He
is
did?
back.
Okay.
Him and Overshone looked pretty good together, just because they're both quick to the ball and in tandem. There could be something there.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on from the Cowboys. So, because this week we were talking about heart issues, I was going to ask you guys, who's your favorite fat guy from a show or a movie? Any show, any movie.
I know you're already thinking Tommy Boy.
That's one. Yeah, for sure. Of course. How can you deny Jesus Christ? Farley.
Oh, you got it. Yeah.
How can you deny Farley?
There you go.
I'm sorry, that took me a
It's
second.
Farley.
Yeah, he's iconic.
That guy in a little coat.
Okay, well that's yours, Tyler.
I didn't
Or do
even
you get another one?
enjoy his that much. Like,
For me, it's him on SNL. He's a very physical actor, and he's what made a lot of those skits just because of like the physical, the man down by the river, that shit. It's so funny. I also loved him and Billy Madison, and all he did, he was just the bus driver who ate all
Yeah.
the kids' lunches. It was so funny. I don't know. I've always liked Chris Farley.
Keenan Thompson.
Fat Albert. He played Fat Albert.
No, Eddie
wait.
Murphy's Fat Albert, I thought.
No, that's
No.
Norbit.
No, that's Norbit. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. But okay. So was he actually fat, or is that a fat suit?
That's definitely a fat suit. He's not
Norbit?
that big.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy's not
Okay,
that
so
big.
how about actual fat guys?
I think Keenan Thompson's hilarious. He's a bigger dude.
He is a bigger dude. I'll give you that one.
Good burger. I don't know. I'm
His stuff
Lincoln.
on SNL is classic too.
I mean, Paul
Or
Blart,
bigger.
Mall Cop.
Well, we already went through Kevin James.
Yeah, here comes the boom. You know what's funny? I finally watched that movie, and I really
you did.
enjoyed it.
You loved it.
I very much enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie. It was a feel good movie.
Nice. And then you can't forget Bobby Moynihan.
Oh, he was a
Piece of
classic. So
toast.
Hey, fun fact: Bobby and Piece of Toast, they actually hate each other.
That part's hilarious.
Too good. All right, moving on. Let's talk about some Texas football, the actual up and coming team. Any concerns moving forward? How we feeling about the rest of the season? How we feeling about the SEC championship? How we feeling about the playoff? What we thinking?
One game at a time, baby. One game at a time. I think we'll
Rest
take
of the
Arkansas.
schedule.
I think A&M might be close, but I think we might beat them by 10 or so, 10 or more.
Ryan, you were gonna say something?
I was saying I was looking up the rest of their schedule. So
I
there's
think
3 games,
Yeah, it's Arkansas, Kentucky, A&M.
and I think they'd be all right. With
Yeah.
those, I think they should take care of business. My thing is when they do get in the playoff, how is that going to go? Are
Yeah,
they
who
going to
you
get a
gonna
bad
bet?
seed or something random?
As of right now, based on the latest college football playoff thing, the second one that they came out with, we get a bye we're one of the teams getting a bye, and it's either, I think the way they seeded it, we're either playing, as of right now, Indiana or Alabama. And I
Who do we
think
want more?
I would love to take down Alabama, but
We always want the big dog.
exactly. But
Indiana's been killing everybody.
yeah,
They're
but
undefeated,
Indiana
right?
hasn't played. Yeah, Indiana hasn't played anybody. Yes, they are, and they're about to finally play their first test, Ohio State.
Dude,
So
this
we'll
is their
see.
biggest season in a long time.
We'll see how they hold up. They've had a weak schedule. Yes, they're undefeated. Yes, they've had a couple good games, but right? Am I thinking of the right team? They haven't played
No,
anybody
you're
big.
thinking of Indiana. Yeah.
Because I don't think they've played anybody special until they
Big
play.
Ten teams, really.
And then do y'all think Army's gonna make it?
No,
Still
I think
undefeated.
I don't. I think they might end up undefeated, but I don't think they're going to keep them in the playoff.
Boise
I think-
State.
I think
They
Boise State's
might.
going to make it.
Yeah. Army's defense is really good. Like, to go along with their running game and possession game, whatever they do, their
Mhm.
defense is what's really good, I think.
Didn't they have a 22 play, 13-minute drive the other day?
I have no idea. I didn't.
Yeah,
I watched
the whole quarter.
I watched their the UNT game against Army a little bit, and every time UNC had a fourth down, they would go for it just because they knew how much like a possession was, like how important that was. They would
Yeah.
be going for it on like 4th and 7, like every time. It's just
They might not get the ball again the rest of the game.
yeah, and it would be on their side of the 52. They're just taking chances.
Be like, second quarter, we got 2 more possessions in us.
First quarter, they did that 4th and 7.
I believe it. I believe it.
And
So
they only scored 3 points in that game.
20-3 or 17-3?
Yeah, something like that. 20-3, I think.
So the only
Still.
team Indiana has played, sorry, I just looked it up, is Michigan, and they beat Michigan 20-15. I think
Really?
Ohio State is gonna. They play Ohio State this weekend. I think Ohio State's gonna stomp them.
Michigan is
I
not
think they
staying.
probably win that one. It should be
No.
a close game, but I think
I don't think it's gonna be close, to be honest with you.
we'll see.
We'll
See.
see. I mean,
Is
I
it
think.
at Ohio State or
Hang on. Yeah, it's at Ohio State.
that'd be crazy if they beat the brakes off them.
That'd be great. I would love that. I mean, that'll bump Indiana up to probably the number 2 team in the nation. That'll give them a first round bye. Then they play whoever as their last game.
Purdue.
They play Purdue, so they should have no problem with that. I mean, I don't know. I don't think any.
Purdue.
We'll see. I mean, Purdue has a notorious history of being top 5 teams. They couldn't beat Oregon though.
I feel like Oregon's a little. I think Oregon's kind of fraudulent. I don't know how good they actually are.
No, I'll give you that one. I think Oregon's a little overrated, but they did beat Ohio State.
They did,
But they've had a couple
they
close
shouldn't
games.
It shouldn't have beat them because of Will Howard, like running the clock out.
Yeah, and they nearly lost to Boise State, wasn't it? Yeah, they had 2 kickoff returns for a touchdown and a punt return for a touchdown in that game.
BYU's still undefeated.
BYU is in the playoff as of right now. As of right now, too, Georgia's out.
And BYU should have lost last week to Utah.
We'll see. I mean, as far as Texas goes, I think we should wax Arkansas. I think we should wax Kentucky. I do feel like, though, the A&M game is the question mark. I feel like that one's going to be close.
Number 15, A&M.
We'll see, although they got destroyed by South Carolina, but we'll see what happens. I'm excited for that game.
What if Colorado sneaks into the playoff?
I don't think that's going to happen.
It would be a stretch for sure. They'd have to win out. SMU is on the borderline there too.
I saw that, yeah.
They're right there. 8-1. Ranked 14th.
We'll see.
ranked ahead of A&M.
This is one of the craziest college football years of like all time, I feel like, especially with the first year of it being the playoff. How many teams have been upset? The SEC just kind of destroying itself.
Penn State ranked number 4, Tennessee ranked number 7.
And Georgia plays Tennessee this weekend.
And Miami looked pretty solid also.
Miami doesn't look bad, but they just came off a loss.
Big loss too.
Huge loss. But Georgia needs this win against Tennessee. If they lose again, they're
out.
done. They're out. They're out.
That'd be fun to see.
That would be fun to see.
Playoffs.
But then that makes Texas look bad, though, because that's our one loss. And they looked horrible against Georgia.
As long as they win out.
As long as they win out, they'll be fine. But still, well, then they got to win the SEC championship.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from for sure. Washington State's 8-1.
They're not going to get in.
Have they played Oregon yet?
I have no idea.
What's Washington State in? Because that's not the same conference anymore.
It's not Big Ten.
Are they
Is it?
ACC? No, that would be too
Oh, they're
far.
playing like Boise State, San Jose State, Hawaii.
That Mountain?
I think that's Mountain West.
Okay.
That was Pac-12.
All right. Well, moving on from Texas now, back to a more medical thing. Is there any medical device equipment that you guys think you would recommend to someone that doesn't like necessarily need this kind of equipment prescribed? Like anything you can think of that might benefit someone medically as far as like heart conditions and stuff go?
CPR training.
Okay.
Stress ball.
Trust ball.
Stress ball.
Oh,
Stress ball. Oh my God.
Uh,
Yes, I see
A
where you're
trust
coming
ball too.
from.
It's the best.
that's not bad. Stress management.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is some kind of watch. Monitors your heart rate, monitors your heart rhythm, detects sleep apnea now. It detects a fall if you have a fall, it detects a car crash. That's something that anybody can easily get as far as medical device equipment goes. As far as everything else, most of the stuff needs to be prescribed. But
Blood pressure cuff.
a blood pressure cuff, you can always do that. That's always easy.
AED. You don't really see that around the house too much.
No, you don't, but that's not a bad idea. But that's about all I can think of. All right. So, next question. What are some preventative measures for this type of medical issue?
Who wants to start?
I'll let you guys go first.
Well, I would definitely say fitness and diet, lifestyle choices.
100%. The biggest cause of aortic aneurysms and stuff like that, besides obvious, congenital defects, like Sark can't do anything about that, to be fair. But as far as just aortic aneurysms go, fitness, making sure you're eating right, not a lot of fast food, just because that's what causes arteriosclerosis, which is basically just the hardening of arteries. And that can potentially lead to this type of medical issue. That's the main thing you can really do. Any other ideas, Ryan?
Not really.
All right. Had a few words. That's okay. So now, more fun topic. Who won this last challenge? I think it's between you guys. I don't think it's me. I ran 3 miles in total, so I underperformed.
Yeah, so this is how many miles we tracked on Strava. And I tracked 10, about 10.
Okay.
Nice.
Tyler?
Technically, the competition was to be tracked on Strava.
It was.
I didn't track a whole lot on Strava.
Well, I didn't either, but
All right. Well, then if we're going off the honor system, how many miles did you run?
The Strava miles that I do have since then, I have like 8 miles on Strava. I did run on my own without tracking it.
Okay, well,
I did also run 31 hill sprints, 31 40-yard hill sprints when I turned 30.
oh,
But
that was your 30th
that was,
birthday?
that was 30th.
Oh shit, dude. Well, happy 30th. I knew it was your birthday. I told you happy birthday on it. I didn't realize it was your 30th though.
3-0.
Well, congrats on
But
that.
I would say technically Ryan won because he tracked it on Strava.
All right, we'll go it off of technicality then. I will put that in the Ryan column. Hang on 1 second. Let me record this
He
epic
followed the rules.
moment.
I did run a lot though. That was not tracked.
I believe it.
Tracked and
believe
not
it for
tracked,
sure.
I ran 3 miles. So, like I said, I slacked a bit. But congrats to you, boys. All right, well, Ryan is down for the win there so far. Let's go over the tally so far. See who's won what. Tyler, you got 1 on the squats. Ryan, you got 1 now on the running, and we all have a draw on mountain climbers. I'm sitting at a fat goose egg as far as wins go, so I need to step it up a little. So, speaking of, what is our challenge this time till we record again? I came up with the running one, so
Does everybody have a gym? Because I don't know if I have one.
I don't have a gym currently, no.
We got the outdoors, baby.
That's true. Let's do something outdoors that we all can do because I don't have a gym either.
Side planks for time
Why? Okay.
because they suck.
Could it just be plank? Like any plank, side plank included?
Side planks, both sides.
Okay. Total time or just
So if you do
1
30
minute on
you
each
do
side?
30
counts as
seconds
1
right
minute.
side, 30 seconds left side, it's 30 seconds.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
What if I do center?
No, it doesn't count.
So a minute is 30 seconds, pretty much.
No,
No,
a
if you
minute
do
is 2
If
minutes.
you do a minute
essentially.
on the right, a minute on the left, and it's a minute.
Right. That was my 30-second conversion.
Okay. Well, I feel like that's kind of hard to track on Strava. So we're going to go off the honor system on this one. So no cheating.
No cheating. We can text update every day.
Okay. We're doing side planks and I'm going to be, I need to win one. So
This is a good one because if you can get on your side planks, that's a big physique change.
Those obliques.
get rid of those love handles, baby. All right. Now that we got that taken care of. Last thing, any places, concerts, anything like that that you'd like to kind of promote that you've been to recently that you enjoyed?
Well, the Friday weekend of my 30th, I turned 30 on Sunday. I went to like this kind of house concert. I think it was called Jack Hyde.
Okay.
It was very interesting, high energy. Not the usual concert I would go to, but it was a lot of fun. We stayed out till like 5 a.m.
Well, there you go. That sounds like a good night to me.
It
Ryan?
was a fun time.
Haven't been to a concert since the summer, and that was like our county fair. But it was big names like country artists, Kip Moore and Nico Moon. So they were pretty good.
That was big
Nice.
for, was it technically West Unions?
Yeah, it's Fayette County Fair.
I mean, that's pretty big names.
Well, there you go. All right. As far as me, I actually went to a new brewery today, just outside of Golden, called New Terrain Brewery. That's where they had that fancy flight picture that I sent you guys.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
They had a very good selection, huge outdoor area, and good food truck, good little stage for concerts that they have occasionally. It started snowing while we were there.
Oh, that's cool. What did you get to drink?
I had their Golden Haze, which is a hazy IPA, and then We had the Flight, where we tried all 3 of their sours. We tried another hazy IPA that was like a pine tree hazy IPA.
That sounds good.
It was weird, but it tasted just like pines, but it was good. I liked it a lot.
That's right up my alley.
And then Chancey got this malt that was like a coconut blended malt that was like really heavy, but it tasted really good too. So
yeah, you'll have to show us that one.
Definitely recommend it. It was a good brewery. I liked it a lot.
Yep, take us there.
Oh yeah. Well, whenever. So, last but not least, I did like this one quote I had from the Sark man himself. I thought it is kind of fitting for pretty much everybody. He said in that documentary or like the YouTube video I saw, life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. I felt like that's a pretty good one to end on. So
it's powerful.
That about wraps it up here. Any questions?
No.
All right. Well, Tyler, any ideas on the next episode? Who are we looking at? Any top prospects? What we thinking?
Top prospects. Keeping it different. Keeping it interesting. Oh, I did see that Austin Fortner was back to riding again.
I saw that. Yeah, you sent us that video. That's awesome. That's good to hear. Update
back on the bike.
Update on a previous trauma guy there. He's back on the bike, looking good. Is he going to compete again?
It looks like he's on track to. But
hell yeah, that's what we like to see.
I will say the next one is to be decided. I will get back with you on that one.
But hopefully we get this one uploaded by, what's today? Wednesday now. I have the day off today, so I'm going to do the editing. Hopefully we can get this done by, I'm going to be optimistic and say Friday, if not Monday. And try to either record again next week or the week after.
Sounds like a plan to me.
So more the next wave to come. Also, anybody listening have any questions, feel free to shoot us a DM over on our Instagram page at Wavy Gang.
Like, follow, subscribe.
Like, follow, subscribe. If that's it, any final comments from the boys?
Stay wavy. Stay wavy.
Stay wavy. Until next time. Bye.
Adios.